Legal drugs are killing people in this country. Today, 116 people will die from opioids. 116 people today, more than 42,000 people every year. One company, Purdue Pharma, a private company owned by the Sackler family, is preparing to answer to Congress, facing scrutiny for its role in the opioid epidemic. How did this happen? Opioids have been highly regulated in the U.S. since the 20s, but in 1996, Purdue Pharma released OxyContin, an opioid painkiller. Now, at the time, opioids were typically used for terminally ill cancer patients. But with the rise of pain management, Purdue saw an opportunity to market their new drug beyond the end-of-life treatment. OxyContin was marketed as having an extremely low risk of addiction, less than 1%. But that number was based on a 1980 letter in a medical journal, not based on up-to-date clinical trials. When the FDA approved OxyContin, it attached a warning to limit competitive promotion, a warning Purdue seemed to effectively ignore. Sales reps pushed gifts, free lunches, and branded swag in doctors' offices across the country, even sending free 30-day supplies of the pills. And opioids are very big business. There are more than a dozen manufacturers of brand name opioids. Many of them make several different opioid products. And those companies spent more than $46 million just in payments to doctors between 2013 and 2015 as part of efforts to market the drugs, according to the Washington Post. It's paying off. The industry made $14.7 billion in 2015, revenue that's projected to jump to more than $18 billion by 2020. Joining me now is Beth Macy. She was a longtime reporter for the Roanoke Times in Virginia as the opioid crisis took hold there and spread. Now she's author of Dopesick, an in-depth look at opioid addiction and the quicksand that traps millions of Americans, and where much of the information we just reported came from. So, Beth, walk me through it. How does a company put out a drug without fully knowing and letting people know how addictive it is?
Well, the FDA allowed them, when they introduced it in 1996, to make this kind of squishy claim that it was believed to reduce the risk of addiction because of its time-release mechanism. And that squishy claim then became made into this truth that was sort of repeated and exaggerated, as I say in the book, like a game of telephone gone terribly awry. And Purdue sent its reps out across the country. They particularly targeted areas where their competitive opioids, which were lower dose largely, they were immediate release drugs, were already being marketed. So that's why this opioid epidemic was seeded in rural distressed communities where there were already lots of workplace injuries and actually closing coal mines and things like that. And so in those communities, it started so much earlier than it did in the rest of the country. And these reps, as you say, sent out a lot of swag. And the shocking thing was that children were dying in these regions while doctors were being sent on free beach trips wearing OxyContin branded beach hats.
So, look, I mean, I've gotten what I guess are free drugs. You know, I've gone in, I'm having an allergy attack, and they give me a couple of them in individual packets until I go to my own pharmacist and get my prescription. Is it legal, though, to do that for these highly addictive drugs?
Well, it was legal then. What was illegal and what the federal government investigated Purdue for, and which culminated in a guilty plea and a sentencing hearing in 2007, is that they were criminally misbranding the drugs. The reps were giving out bad data, including that letter you mentioned earlier, written in 1980, that wasn't an indicator of long-time risk of addiction. And the reps were heavily incentivized by huge bonuses. The more milligrams a doctor ended up prescribing, the bigger the bonus the rep would get. And so those practices, those practices sort of simmered down in the wake of that guilty plea and the wake of a black box warning in 2001. But the company didn't reformulate the drug to be abuse resistant until 2010. And sales continue to rise.
You know, you talked to a doctor who found, and I thought this was startling, non-addicted people see their future in terms of the next 4.5 years. Those addicted to opioids see their future in terms of the next 9 days. Tell me about some of the people you talked to for this book.
Well, I actually brought a picture of one of them with me. She's the young woman I followed for the longest. Her name was Tess Henry. This is a locket her mother gave me shortly after she died. She was overprescribed 2 opioids for a simple case of bronchitis at an urgent care. And one of the first times
For bronchitis?
For bronchitis, it was cough syrup with codeine and hydrocodone for sore throat pain. This was 2012. By 2014 and 15, she had been sent to treatments, but they were abstinence only, and they didn't really work for her. And she ended up mixing with criminal gangs and prostitution rings. And again, at the end of their journey, they're not going after this drug to get high. They're going after this drug because they are addicted. And they're trying not to be dope sick. And that's the word users use to describe this excruciating pain of withdrawal, which is diarrhea, vomiting, sweats, etc. This sort of outsized fear of being dope sick is what's driving them to continue to get heroin. And now with fentanyl in the supply, it is just so hard for people to get off. And it's so dangerous.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.